With over 35 years in India's top steel giants from Tata Steel to JSW, Mr. Shiv Hukku.
So when I was growing up in my life, my father was working in Tata Steel. He worked for almost 40 years there. So every day there would be conversations of what happened in the factory, what happened in the shop floor.
Stories like that are what make these conversations so real. It's not about linear success, it's about those honest, messy moments where purpose takes shape.
I had never thought and planned for it. And I didn't know what was purchasing all about. My boss was very supportive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FaceTime with Leaders, brought to you by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. This is the space where we step past the business cards and get into the real stories, the decisions, the dilemmas, and the evolution of leadership itself. And today's guest, Mr. Shiv Hukku, has had a front row seat to the building of India's industrial backbone. With over 35 years in India's top steel giants from Tata Steel to JSW, Mr. Shiv has led some of the most complex supply chain and sales transformations across automotive, engineering, and infrastructure sectors. He has lived the nuances of demand planning, multi-plant integration, market development, not in theory, but in the trenches. And today, as he transitions into board and advisory roles, Mr. Shiv brings with him not just wisdom, but clarity, humility, and a whole lot of lived experience. So, what a pleasure it is to have you with us, Mr. Shiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Look forward to this interaction through Directors Institute.
So, Mr. Shiv, let's rewind a bit, not to your first job title, but to that first spark. What drew you to this path in the first place? Was there a moment, maybe early in your career or even back in your college days, where you knew this is the kind of impact I want to make?
I was born in a steel township of Jamshedpur, where the first integrated steel plant in the country, Tata Steel, was running. So when I was growing up in my life, my father was working in Tata Steel. He worked for almost 40 years there. So every day there would be conversations of what happened in the factory, what happened in the shop floor. So very engaging conversations. I couldn't visit the factory because I was young enough. So during the college days, we had a induction into the factory. It was gigantic by any size. Obviously, it was much smaller that time compared to what it is now, but it was mind-boggling. So the scale was so mind-boggling, I didn't know how to react actually. So in my mind, I had already joined the company, one of the most blue chip companies of that current times. Unfortunately, when I tried to apply for it, I was told I am not qualified enough beyond graduation. So I started my career in Bhilai Steel Plant, worked the ropes there for almost a year and a half in procurement, and then got my MBA from XLRA degree, full-time 2-year course. Beyond that, Mr. Rusi Modi was the chairman and managing director of Tata Steel. I was fortunate enough to have been interviewed by him in his luxurious, huge room in Bombay House, and he onboarded me as a management trainee again. In fact, my colleagues from XLRI batchmates used to call me management trainee par excellence because it was the third management trainee stint, but I still went for it. I wanted to see the ground and the reality of working across the entire corporate of Tata Steel, right from the mines. So having done all this, I thought it was very huge, and it was something which was the construction period, the infrastructure building, the liberalization of the economy was taking place. So I was happy to join this culture of Tata Steel, which was very ethical, very professional, and passionately driven by everybody, very humble. I met Mr. Ratan Tata, the chairman, few times. Extremely positive person, very humble, but such a tall, towering personality. It was mind-boggling to even be with him for a few minutes. So that's how I went on with my stint in Tata Steel and further on in JSW Steel to create infrastructure for the country, to create help in building the country's organizations.
Mr. Shiv, stories like that are what make these conversations so real. It's not about linear success. It's about those honest, messy moments where purpose takes shape.
True. So if I look at it from after 10 years of running in Jamshedpur, from the plant to the offices, looking after customer services and production planning, I was moved to the commercial organization of sales, looking after large enterprise accounts in Mumbai. The Tata Motors of the world, the Bajaj, the Mahindras, the Bama lorries. Very, very happy to do it. At some point of time, overnight, I was transferred to a supply chain role in Tata Wires. And that was catapulting me across from a sales role to a purchase role, end-to-end supply chain role. I had never thought and planned for it. And I didn't know what was purchasing all about. My boss was very supportive. He said, if you have handled the customers, you'll be able to handle the vendors and the production planning units also. So it was a very, very engaging time and lots of stories I can tell, but I would wait for your next cue.
Absolutely. So, continuing our conversation, Mr. Shiv, you have led end-to-end planning for multi-location plants, from demand forecasting to margin strategy. But we all know operations don't always go as planned. So, tell us about a time when the systems got messy. Maybe timelines were tight, stakeholders weren't aligned, or capacity planning went sideways, whatever. So, what did that moment teach you about leadership under pressure?
So when I got transferred to the Tata Wires business, there were 5 manufacturing units, and I was supposed to look after end-to-end supply chain, including procurement. Multiple factories had differentiated recording systems. The IT systems were old and different. So over a period of time, when we expanded the presence, and mind you, that time this company or this part of Tata Steel was having a 35% market share. And we grew with that number of factories from 5 to 19. This was such a massive scale of number of factories. We decided that we need to have, as a top management of the group of the wires business, we decided we had to have a proper end-to-end SAP rollout. The systems had to be similar and common. The processes had to be similar. So we got consultants together, the product partners together, and some of the brightest knowledgeable youngsters to roll out this whole effort of SAP deployment. The customers were also taken on board that we will have a deployment in the next 1 year, but we may have an outage. And those customers are very sensitive. The auto customers used to be delivered just in time. The vendors also had to be onboarded that we are having a new system. You may have a problem for payment for about a week. The union used to be questioning our motive to roll out a new system, because they were looking at used to about 20, 25-year-old older systems, easier to handle. But we went around our way in a very clinical, but very passionate manner, trying to convince everybody across the chain, whether it was the vendor or the customer or the managers involved or the IT, and also the union, that whatever we are doing is for the good of the organization. But after almost a year of hard work, literally 7 days of effort, everyday basis with the core team of about 40 or 50 people, when the final cutover strategy comes in, your data is ready, but you have your heart palpitation. That are we going the right path? Because there were a lot of examples of the automotive or the consumer giants, the consumer goods giants, who had to roll back SAP for 6 months to 1 year. We didn't know whether it will hit us or not. We had committed about 72 hours. We are standing behind all our youngsters who are literally working overnight. Typically Friday night cutoff and Saturday, Sunday was our timelines to come back, make the system come back and use the production facilities. Finally, everything went off well, but it was not the SAP deployment per se. It was the whole passionate young team and delivering across the working organization. It was not just a system, it was a belief which actually delivered the project. So I was lucky to be part of that senior management effort at that point of time.
Mr. Shiv, that's the kind of story that hits different. Because it's not just about ops going wrong, it's about what it takes to stay grounded when everything's off balance. And thank God you did not sugarcoat anything. I mean, that honesty, that pressure, that uncertainty, it's what makes this real.
Thank you.
So, moving on to my next question, Mr. Shiv, you have been part of some of India's biggest supply chain transformation programs. What is it really like driving change at that scale? Uh, is it as strategic as it sounds, or mostly about navigating resistance, uncertainty, or real-time pivots?
So in JSW, we have attempted the advanced planning and scheduling program. It's a massive supply chain transformation program, uh, among the best of global benchmark products in supply chain. We had built in all the top partners for it. So this started about 3 years back, and we evaluated multiple technologies, 6 months of rigorous work to see what is the best of technology. Typically, what is not the standard process, JSW had its own processes. So we had to adapt the product to ensure that we are running with our process. So it looks very good on strategy. On paper, it looks good. We had the best notch of almost 7 or 8 consulting partners, global partners to us, who were very good in their own work. We had the top-notch young team as well as senior team to manage the maturity of the whole project. So it was planned to be a 26-month project. Now, right now, we are 36 months. It's over. It's running fine. But when it was going to the 20th month, we had lots of challenges. The first decision was whether we go big bang. We didn't. We went module by module, factory by factory. So we had to, we faced a lot of resistance in various factories, resistance in regions, that why are we doing all this? So we had to really align everybody in meetings, whether across the board, across the regions, across the factory, or on a weekly plan, weekly reviews with our top management, monthly reviews with the joint managing director. It was finally actually a push mode at multiple times that this project has been co-created, collaborated with the blessings of the board, and it needs a world-class customer system, which we are aiming at, improvement of the factory culture in terms of cost efficiencies and effectiveness. But even during the rollout, there were a lot of changes which were happening because we had not anticipated that. Neither the partners had anticipated, but new requirements kept on coming. So it was an agile mode of working around the change, getting convinced or convincing the person who's supposed to use it, training them multiple times because changes meant training people. So there was a lot of resistance at some point of time. Over a period of time, with this passionate, young, knowledgeable team, which was about almost 50 members, and another 40 or 50 members across the plant locations were supporting this. Finally, when we rolled out most of the project or most of the modules by last year, August, everybody was on board. Some people were still sitting on the sidelines that this may collapse, not knowing that it has got integrated so well in the project and the harmony of the various systems that it cannot roll back. So I would tell some of those colleagues, guys, the train has started. Either you get onto the train, or you'll be left behind. So it was like technology meeting its own challenges, the passion of the young people, driven by complete knowledge and complete confidence that this is the next step for us. And we need to anyway take it further into orientation towards more better customer service, I would say.
You know, Mr. Shiv, what really stood out wasn't just the scale, it was the unpredictability, the chaos, the resistance, and how you navigated it without a playbook.
That is what is the good part of any of these transformation projects. We have a playbook. Yes, the consulting partners have a playbook. The core team has a playbook, but every week, every month, there'll be some change which we not anticipated. So it has to be an agile methodology. Also collaborative. If you don't get your people on board, if you don't make them understand why we are doing it, the change will not be effective enough. And any supply chain transformation project, which is the planning part of it, can be derailed very quickly if people are not onboarded, because it's not an execution system. So we have to get people on board.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about the 3-year advanced planning and scheduling transformation at JSW. What made that project unforgettable, and what did it teach you about aligning operations with strategy?
This is what I was talking about a few minutes back also. So the advanced planning and scheduling project has been a game changer for JSW Steel. JSW Steel is the largest by volume capacity in the country and among the largest in the world right now. We wanted to make it a benchmark project. And I'm happy to say that the multiple partners who were involved in it, I've met the India heads or the global heads, they have again and again confirmed back to us that this was the most complex metals benchmark project in the world in the last 10 years. So how we collaborated with multiple people, actually we had board members onto our side. The director operations was pushing every week if there's an issue. And he would support us because there was huge amount of people involved, money involved. And finally, the end game was to improve customer satisfaction. So it obviously happens that the project like this needs momentum, and it's a long drawn project. It's not a 6 month or a 1 year project. It's almost now 3 years. We are having a lot of advantages right now in terms of operations cost and customer visibility of on time and in full. But over the period of time, there's a lot of fatigue which builds up that we are trying to do something in spaces. So people are still waiting that the whole paraphernalia is not ready. And we have to give them that comfort that, hold on, we are going there and we'll achieve what is required by the organization.
Rightly said, Mr. Shiv, and it's rare to hear a senior leader talk so openly about the uncertainties that come with change, especially at that magnitude.
So yes, this is a fact which I have experienced across multiple organizations and across multiple transformations. Change management is the most difficult part of any practice, any process, and unless you get all your people onboarded and convinced, that's the slowest part of it. If they are not convinced, the changes will not go through. So my mantra is work with the people, work on the ground, understand the reality, don't overcommit, undercommit, and overperform.
Rightly said, Mr. Shiv. Okay, so all right, so time for some fun as we move on to the next segment, which is called rapid fire round. So are you ready?
Look forward to it.
Okay, so here's my first question to you. Go to comfort food after a long day.
So if I've had a tiring day and difficult day, when I come home and if others or family are there, I am very comfortable, very easy with the most simplest of food, which is dal chawal. But if nobody is around, then I will have my limited ice cream, sugar free. And if somebody else is
Okay.
around, then I have healthy dark chocolates.
All right, guilty pleasures, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, a song or artist that keeps you pumped during morning hours.
So I'm not a bathroom singer at all. However, I wake up much earlier than the others. So I'm very comfortable. It's a very soothing song which I hear often, which is Hanuman Chalisa. It sets the tone for the day completely.
Absolutely, absolutely amazing and very unexpected. Okay, moving on to the next question. One tool or habit you swear by for staying sharp.
So I tend to wake up early. I tend to work earlier. So if there is a time which I have to build up, so I do or make it 1 hour ahead of it so that I am ahead of the rush hour, so to say.
Okay, great. Dream vacation spot if you could hit pause for a week.
So if I hit pause, I would like to be very near the ocean, but not the muddy ocean which we see here next to Bombay. So I would be wanting to say in a very peaceful blue lagoon kind of ocean. So yeah, maybe Mauritius.
Great. One unexpected thing we would find in your desk drawer or bag.
That's a good one. So in my bag, I carry a small comb. I have limited hair. You can see that. So I use it to plane or soothe the ruffled hair and also the soothe the ruffled mental mode if there's an issue.
That was unexpected, but that was fun.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So getting back to our conversation and moving on to the next segment of questions. Mr. Shiv, in large-scale infrastructure or industrial projects, especially in the public sector, we have seen issues like collusive bidding or substandard materials creeping into procurements, often compromising timelines, trust, and margins. So, given your leadership in aligning supply chain operations with ethical sourcing and strategic planning at scale, how did you ensure transparency and supplier integrity across such a complex ecosystem? And were there moments when you had to push back to or recalibrate to uphold those standards?
So when I moved to Tata Wires under the supply chain role of Chief of Supply Chain, as I told you earlier, this was a totally different role for me. Complete purchasing was different. I had to understand it. So the good part of it, since I was new, I could question everything. There was a huge tail of vendors, huge tail of small contracts and service contracts, product contracts. So to understand that, I got my own team going from the purchasing and the sourcing part of it. Got the vendors evaluated, typical supply chain theory. But the most important part was that when you start opening up contracts, there's a lot of resistance because you are questioning some 20-year-old practice, 10-year-old practice, 15-year-old practices, where the contracts are just being replicated with some escalation clauses. So when I started questioning those, because I was new to it, there was a resistance from multiple people. And I had to explain to them that let's do it something different. So I wanted to make it more transparent, less physical, more virtual. I introduced reverse auctions. In the end, even the union, which was kind of questioning me, why am I changing the service contracts the way I was doing? When I explained to them, came out to the logic that is good for the workers, it's good for their own factory cost, ensuring transparency and cost effectiveness and efficiencies. The results were for everybody to see. So there are a lot of people who will question one person who's going into this kind of practice of evaluating everything. But in the end, the data speaks for itself. So over a period of time, the cost reduced, the effectiveness of sourcing improved, the vendor numbers reduced, so you could handle the vendors better. And obviously, we had typical evaluation of ethical sourcing and environment friendliness of the vendors also. So if I look back, I can say that yes, we followed complete copybook, but beyond that, you have to take a stand. There's a lot of pushback which happens that why are you changing this? Why are you changing that? You have to enable the people who are actually believing in you and use uh, their ecosystem to push through difficult decisions. Obviously, you have to get to the top bosses and ensure that they are also convinced about it. Once they are convinced, then there's no looking back at it. And you have to have a very high level of maturity, extreme high level of integrity that people do not question you for unethical practices. So that was a real big revelation in those 6 years when I was there as chief of supply chain. And the first year was a nightmare, but I also received threats when I did reverse auctions. But I had to push through. And this is what finally it's all about, whether you are ethical and whether you are able to stand your pace and stand up to what you want for the betterment of the organization.
Honestly, Mr. Shiv, the way you unpack the ethical challenges in procurement without sounding preachy is exactly what we need more of in leadership conversations.
Thank you.
All right, so heading to the next question and the last question of the podcast. You recently joined Directors Institute. So, after years in executive roles, what made you say yes to learning again? And what has that experience shifted in your thinking?
I will be completing almost 40 years now in corporate connect, out of which 38 years of active corporate service. When I decided about more than a month back to hang up my corporate boots finally and seek my retirement, it was not that I will literally, so to say, retire and sit back and see Netflix through the day. That is not how I am made of. I am a very external person. I am an action oriented person. I want to work with teams and youngsters and new technology. So I decided what next. So I have worked actually in JSW. I've been very lucky to work with number of directors, board members, extremely powerful people, extremely sound people, knowledgeable. But the way they drive the businesses, the way they affect families and multiple companies, but they're still so humble. That itself was a very big experience for me. I wanted to follow at least part of it without the noise, contribute to the betterment of corporates, contribute to with my knowledge of supply chain sustainability. I want to improve my knowledge in ESG, the environment sustainability goals, which are life changing now. I want to contribute on that, learn more on that. I want to do more in terms of technology because I'm happy with working with technology. So right now I'm also looking at or aligning myself with a course in generative AI to be future ready. I want to be useful to the organization and to multiple people who may seek my advisory services. So it is just a question of what next. So at least for the next 10 years, I want to contribute by having much more learning and with integrity and with depth in terms of corporate governance, in terms of ESG, and in terms of digital technologies.
That sounds great, Mr. Shiv. There is something really refreshing about a seasoned leader saying, I still have more to learn. That humility is exactly what we need in modern boardrooms.
So this is what actually drives me. Learning is endless. The mind is limitless. How you utilize it for your passions to contribute positively to society is what I am built with.
Great, great. So, Mr. Shiv, let me thank you not just for your insights, but for how you showed up today. You reminded us that business leadership isn't about dashboards and jargons. It's about integrity, adaptability, and staying human through it all.
Thank you, Sunny, for those kind words, actually.
And to everyone listening, if this episode made you pause, reflect, or see strategy a little differently, do share it with someone you care about. This is FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute. Until next time, stay sharp, stay grounded, and always stay future ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you.